Welcome to literary and jury charge practice. Let's start out with this very short paragraph, get our fingers warmed up, and it is called an abbreviation review, so there may be some words in here that you may or may not brief. Ready? Here we go. This is an independent organization. They fought for independence. Have you read the morning paper? Independence Hall is in Pennsylvania. Bring paper and pens. He has an independent income. She enjoys her independence. His work is independent of this office. Did you read all of the paper? How do you think the independents will vote? Now for a little bit of jury charge practice. Again, this is a long jury charge. We've been working on this one. The subject is rules of evidence. Ready? Here we go. In this case, there has been a certain conflict in the testimony of the expert witnesses. You must resolve that conflict. To that end, you must weigh one expert's opinion against that of another. The reasons given by one against those of the other, and the relative credibility and knowledge of the experts who have testified. Thereupon you shall find in favor of that expert testimony which, in your opinion, is entitled to the greater weight. That is the end of that particular jury charge. All right, let's next practice this literary, and it is called An Officer Testifies. Ready? Here we go. In this case, since there are two officers, I would have one officer guard the suspect and the other officer stretch his hand out and shine a flashlight over that fence to see if there was somebody on the other side. I am very safety oriented, and I like to protect myself. Next, I would not approach the suspect until he had a proper search. My first contact with the situation was an FBI course that I took, and they listed a number of officers who had been shot with their own guns. It is recommended that when you approach, you give your gun to your partner and he stands off some distance to one side so that you are not in a crossfire. If he did have to fire, he wouldn't hit the other officer. I am talking about at least 6 feet so that the suspect couldn't lunge and grab his gun. There have been a considerable number of cases where the gun has been taken from the officer, so I would have held off until such time as the suspect was in position for a proper wall search, and that is where his feet are out so far that he could not possibly push himself back. Then at such time, if you can reach him, grab him with your left hand by the belt, and then you can sense any movement. If he were to try to push back, he shouldn't be able to do that if he is in the proper search position. You have control over him and you can control his movements. Another thing, I think probably the first order I would give him would be to get those hands up. Get them up on top of his head. That would be my first concern. Get those hands where I can see them. In other words, I want him to know he had better get those hands up. Once the hands are up and I can see there are no weapons, then I would instruct him to go over against the fence or the wall. practice a little jury charge. And the subject of this jury charge is recovery suit. Ready? Here we go. This is the case of John Evans and Ida Evans and Revere State Bank, a Nevada corporation, as plaintiffs against Warren L. Shipman and Mary W. Shipman as defendants. The petition in this matter is plaintiffs suing upon a note which was secured by a mortgage that was executed and delivered to the plaintiffs, John Evans and Ida Evans, by the defendants. This note, it is alleged, was pledged by the plaintiffs, John Evans and Ida Evans, to the Revere State Bank. For that reason, Revere State Bank has been joined as a party to the plaintiffs. The petition then sets forth that default has been made in the terms of the mortgage by the defendants in failing to make payments as provided in said instruments, and said plaintiffs have elected to declare the whole indebtedness plus attorney's fees and costs immediately due and payable. We have something a little different now. This is called a congressional. Ready? Here we go. Mr. Chairman, it is a privilege to say a few words about the work that is being done by this group, and to recommend inclusion in the bill of the amendment which was made by the senator from Vermont. When I first realized that I had the ambition to go into government service, the senator from Vermont was the very first person from whom I sought advice. Once upon a time, my colleague was an isolationist, as were many others on this side of the chamber. However, he came to realize, as others have, that the United States can no longer live in a vacuum. Although in his early days he thought that America could be an island, he has realized that that is no longer true. Isolationism is no longer a viable policy. Both Republicans and Democrats in the United States Senate today are pressing for enactment of this bill and the amendments which have been offered this morning. The funds necessary have already been appropriated, and the appropriation will take us to the point where the United States can look beyond its borders and become a part of the world order and give leadership to that order. It will be able to take responsibility and to shoulder its fair share of the financial cost of this project. Mr. Chairman, I would hope that the vote will be unanimous for the bill and its amendments. All right, next we have an abbreviation review. And again, some of these words you may not brief, and of course you would just write them out. Let me give you the list here of the words that they're focusing on in this abbreviation review. Expect, amend, concern, address, legislate, cooperate, economy, economic, legislature, appropriation, administer, experience, appropriate, economical, cooperation, amendment, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman. Ready? Here we go. What did you expect? The legislature passed the bill. Did you buy the economy size? He addressed the wrong person. It was difficult to contact the administration. Who will be administering the campaign? Mr. Chairman, we can effect some economies if we legislate these changes. I need to economize. That memo was concerning you. You need to speak to the administrator. Mr. Smith expects me to give the report today. He cooperates in economizing. Important legislation was on the agenda. He gave a stirring address. I think, Mr. President, that this is appropriate legislation. Did they amend the bill? It is more economical to buy two. All right, we'll stop there. That will conclude our literary and jury charge practice.